There's a street in Barcelona I walked down a few years ago on a trip that had nothing to do with what I'm about to tell you. Ordinary street. A bakery, a bar with plastic chairs outside, a man fixing his motorcycle. I only found out later, from a footnote actually, the way you find out most of the important things, that during the Civil War this city was bombed for 3 days straight by Italian planes flying for Franco. Barcelona, not a battlefield, a city having a normal day. And the people living on that street now, I'd guess most of them could walk past it every day and never think about it once. Not hidden exactly, just not discussed. I want to tell you about something historians call the Pacto del Olvido, the Pact of Forgetting. In 1975, Generalissimo Franco dies, and Spain faces a choice very few countries get to make so deliberately. How do you become a democracy again after 4 decades of dictatorship, without the whole thing collapsing into revenge and bloodbath? And what they chose across the political spectrum, left and right, an agreement nobody quite signed, but almost everyone somehow honored, was to not look back. No truth commissions, no prosecutions. Mass graves stayed where they were, some of them for another 30 years. The war, and everything Franco did after it, including trying to erase Catalan language and identity from public life, right here in this city, became something Spaniards agreed, wordlessly, to set down and step around. For a long time I thought about this the way I was trained to, as a historian that is. Also as a Bosnian, whose nation experienced genocide aspirations from its neighbors. I saw the Spanish way as a failure, a gap in the record, something that needed correcting, and eventually was decades later when Spain finally passed its historical memory law and started slowly digging up what had been left buried, sometimes literally. But I've started to wonder if failure is too easy a word for it. Because here's the thing that unsettles me. The more I sit with it, the forgetting worked. Not that it was good or fair to the families who spent 40 years not knowing where their fathers were buried. It wasn't. But it did what it was built to do. It let a country that had just spent 3 years killing each other's grandparents sit down at the same table and write a constitution together. It gave people room to become neighbors again before they're finished being enemies. I don't think that's nothing. I think that might even be a kind of mercy. And yet, I keep thinking about a detail I read once. I won't pretend I remember which archive. About a woman in a village outside Barcelona who knew exactly which field her uncle was buried in. Knew it her whole life. Walked past it for decades. Never told her children, because telling them felt like handing them a weight she'd spent her whole life trying to put down. So the silence didn't stop with the state. It went all the way into people's kitchens, into what parents chose not to tell their kids. Multiply that by a few 100,000 kitchens, and you don't have a policy anymore. You have something closer to a national instinct, a reflex nobody had to teach anyone. That's the part that stays with me. Forgetting isn't just something governments do with laws and silence. It's something people do to each other, out of love sometimes, out of exhaustion, out of not knowing what else you're supposed to do with a grief that big. But let's not be naive, also out of ignorance, indifference, and even hatred. So where does that leave me? Because I don't think this ends in a tidy lesson, I try to find one that keeps slipping away from me. Here's what I actually believe, for whatever it's worth. I don't think forgetting is a failure of memory. I think it's a decision. one that gets made by exhausted people trying to survive each other, and it's neither purely a mercy nor purely a wound. It's both at the same time, held by the same people, often in the same breath. And I think the reckoning always comes due eventually. Spain's did decades later, messier and more contested than anyone would have liked. But I no longer think the people who chose to forget back in 1975 were wrong to bite themselves that time. I think they were human. I think they did what frightened, grieving people do. I just don't think we get to call it closure. I think the most honest word for it is a debt. One that doesn't go away just because nobody mentioned it for 40 years. Is it a right way to do it? I don't know. Time will tell. But I know that status quo in which both warring parties don't talk to each other because of the bloody past is definitely not a solution. I still think that processing fairly the course of history is the best and most healing way to go. But the problem lies in the term fairly. So maybe the Spanish way of forgetting is a great step towards a true reconciliation that will in time heal the nation.